This is section 6-7 on reflection. And so what are we talking about here when we're talking about reflection? Take a look at this picture over here. And obviously you've all seen this. I mean, you've seen a picture, of something that's been reflected in a mirror or on a pond or whatever. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about reflection of an object. And in math, we're going to talk about it obviously over a line like the x-axis or the y-axis. Those are the things that we're going to be looking at. Once again, there are new vocabulary. Put those in your notes. You need to get your vocab in your notes. You must have that. That is one of the grades for this chapter. You must have the vocabulary in your notes. All right, so let's talk about, if we're talking about a mirror image, we're talking about the image where it's flipped over a line, and we call that line we call that a reflection when we do that. That is known as a reflection. The line that we use to flip it over is known as the line of reflection. And this is simply one or more of a series of things called a transformation. And we're going to map different geometric figures based on, reflecting it over a line. So let's take a look at this key concept down here. And notice that we've got this original triangle, X, Y, Z. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's reflect it over this line right here. When we reflect something over a line, the opposite point should be exactly as far away from the line as the original point. So if we're looking at the point X, that distance from here to here needs to be just as far as it is from there to there. So those two things must be equal. That's why they have the little tick marks on there to indicate that those are equal line segments. So from here to here is exactly the same as it is from here down to point Z prime. So we want to make sure that we understand that when we're reflecting something. And so it's pretty easy. You just have, if it's 2 spaces up, you got to go 2 spaces down, and that's where you're going to draw your particular image at that point. Okay? So there's not a whole lot to it, but let's do a few things. And I think for this particular problem, it's probably easier, or these things, it's probably easier to take a look at some of this that I have drawn on the board already. And here I have, for example 1, we have points J, K, L. And so here's my points here, here, here. And what we want to do is make a reflection over this line right here. And all we've got to do is look, okay, it is 1 space from there to there, so my reflected point must go right there. And to go from this one, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and so this one's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's my other point over there. So this would be my J prime point, this would be my K prime point, and here it's 1, 2, and so here's going to be 1, 2, there's my point right there. So there's my reflection, and this is going to be L prime, and this is really all I had to do. All right, let's take a look at example number 2, and it says graph triangle PQR with vertices P -3, 4, Q 4, 2, R -1, 1, and then graph the image of triangle PQRF reflection over the x-axis and write the coordinates of its vertices. So if we take a look at our triangle that we have up here, and this is my x-axis. So what we want to do is reflect it over that. So, if this is one from here up is 1, 2, 3, 4, then I need to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's my point that I should have as my reflection there. And if I do, that would be P prime. And if I look at this one, this next point is 1 space above the line, so my R prime is going to be right there, and it's simply going to be 1 space below. And if I go over to Q, Q is 1, 2 above, So I got to go 1, 2 below, and it's going to be right there. That's my Q prime spot right there. Okay, so I've created my 3 points, and I can make my triangle out of that. But I also want to show you something. And it talks about making the points here. If we look at P prime, and now P prime is -1, -2, -3, it's negative, and then on X, and then Y it's -1, -2, -3, -4. So it becomes -3, -4. And notice how when we reflect it over the x-axis, our y numbers become negative. So if we look at Q prime, it's going to be 4, -2. So you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, -2. So 4, -2, and R is going to be -1, -1. So when we're reflecting over the x-axis, we can simply take the opposite of the y coordinate to find that point. Okay? Okay. So here's my new points that I have right there. Here's my new triangle, and we should be good. All right, let's take a look at example number 3. And example number 3 says graph quadrilateral ABCD with those vertices and graph the image of ABCD after reflection over the y-axis. Now think about this. If this is going to be over the y-axis and I'm going to reflect it, my x points are going to now be opposite. So I can just write these right in here. I'm going to say that's going to be 4, 1. B prime is going to be 2, 3. C prime, well, what's the opposite of 0? Well, the opposite of 0 is still 0, -3. So that point stayed exactly the same. And then D prime is going to be 3, -2. And so now I could now plot these points and do it this way. I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then up 1. So there's my point A prime. For point B prime, I'm going to go 1, 2, and up 3, 1, 2, 3. Right there's my point. And that's B prime. For C prime, it is 0, -3. So there's -1, -2, -3. And that's the same point right down there. So that's C and C prime. And then D prime would be 3, 1, 2, 3. -2, -1, -2. So right there. So there's D prime. And so now I can connect these points. And there's my reflection. And it should look like a mirror image over the y-axis. This one we did on the y-axis. Okay? All right, it is now your turn. Let's do this right here and see how that goes. And we'll come back in that and check that in just a little bit. Okay, let's go back to here to take a look at these, and you're supposed to graph them and then also give the new coordinates. So the first one you did over the x-axis. So if we did this over the x-axis, remember then our y coordinates are going to change. So F prime is going to be 1, 1. G prime is going to be 5, 3. H prime is going to be 2, 4. And you can plot those points, or you can just count up and, here's 1, 1. That's F prime. Here's 5, 3. And you can just, you know that it's going to be above where G is. So there's G prime. And H is going to be above where H is. And so you can say that's 2, and then 4 up. So there's my H prime. And there's my new triangle. That's over the x-axis. If we want to do it over the y-axis, then we're going to be changing the x's. So it's going to be -1, 1. G is going to be -5, -3. And H is going to be -2, -4. So we can plot those points. -1, 1. -5, oops, there's my mistake. -1, -1. How about that? Let's try that one instead. So that didn't look right. -1, -1 is going to be right here. -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -3 is going to be right there. And -2, -4 is going to be right here. And there is my new triangle with F prime, H prime, G prime. Should look like that. Alright, let's go to the very last thing in here. It says, copy and complete the mask shown so that the completed figure has a vertical line of symmetry. So if we have this half of this mask right here, and we want to duplicate that, what we need to do is make sure whatever we have drawn before, it has to be drawn over here on this side. We have to make it look exactly the same. And so that's all we're going to be doing. This is what, just going to make this look just like that one over there. Just complete the half. And it's hard to do this with my marker, right? It's a little bit too big, but it's going to look like that. No, it didn't look very good. And so on. So we something like that. It's pretty close. You should be able to do better with your marker. And so we've got kind of a goofy looking little clown there, but we've now duplicated. If you want a little bit better view, obviously they did a little bit better job than I did. But it's pretty easy. You can see how you have to do that, and it's not too tough to do. Alrighty, I think you're ready to get started on this section here. Let's stop that.